Welcome to Securing America with me, Frank Gaffney, the program that's a kind of owner's manual for protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to God's glory and that of his kingdom. I am very preoccupied, as I think all of us are, by something that has emerged in recent months, slowly in some cases, but inexorably throughout, in response to this. Well, I think of it as a biological warfare attack against us by the Chinese Communist Party, namely a growing, inexorable, as I say, tyranny here at home. I think of it as the China model, basically, with all that it has entailed, from the masks, their mandates, and the quarantines, and the lockdowns, through the inadequately tested vaccines and the mandates that they be utilized, and any other therapies need not apply. And then, not least, the enforcement of those mandates by vaccine passports. A woman who has more, I think, presciently anticipated where this would all lead than anybody else, here or anywhere else for that matter, and who has been more forthright, more articulate, and more reasoned in her warnings about them, is, I'm very pleased to say, our first guest. Her name is Dr. Naomi Wolf. She has been, among other things, the author of this new book, The Bodies of Others. We're going to talk with her about it, the new authoritarians, COVID-19, and the war against the human. Just a further word about her background. She has been a public intellectual of great renown for a long time, very much on the left in the past. But some of the things that she has said, some of the positions that she has advocated for, have made her, it seems, persona non grata among her former comrades on the left. But I think Americans across the spectrum, and certainly on this program, really welcome her with open arms and thank her for this very important contribution to some of the most important public policy choices our nation has ever faced. Dr. Wolf, welcome back to Securing America. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations on this masterful new work. Let's talk a little bit about this China model. I don't know if you would characterize it that way or not, but it does seem as though most of the things that I just described, which are now to varying degrees here operating in our country, were brought to us by the Chinese Communist Party. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And you and Reggie Littlejohn, as well as my husband, I've got to credit Brian O'Shea, 12 years military intelligence and now an intelligence, like private intelligence guy, persuaded me early on. I thought when I first heard him and you guys say what a threat China was, I thought that that was not credible. I thought you were respectfully exaggerating, or and we were conditioned on the left to really see fear of China as kind of xenophobic and provincial, uh, because so much money I now realize was being made by elites on the left and the right, but primarily on the left, by investing in and aligning with China. So and also I guess I could say that I now see the through line of Marxist ideology and doctrine kind of masquerading for the last 35 years as norms and cultural values on the left that I really thought were organic to the left. So that's really shocking. But in terms of the big picture, I absolutely agree with you. I make this case now in the bodies of others, and credit you and Ms. Littlejohn, because the, I do see now that the last 2 years of the pandemic has been exported from China, but also exploited by China in alliance with the World Economic Forum and with big tech jumping on the bandwagon, in a way as to create a national security breach, to make war on us, asymmetrical warfare, as
Mm.
General Spalding and others call it, typical of Chinese warfare, CCP warfare, I should say, and I see
Unrestricted warfare, in fact.
unrestricted warfare. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
And I see that they have been largely successful. And people, the shocking thing is, people remain unaware that there's been a kind of terraforming of our culture intentionally to make it less and less Western, less and less American, less and
Mm.
less about Western values and capitalist values like family and property rights and, Western values, post-Renaissance values, post-Enlightenment values like individual human rights, individual bodily autonomy, and more like seeding CCP style values and norms and cultural change into our own culture.
Yeah. One of the things that you just sort of alluded to there is this effort to sort of turn our country into just another nation, a member of the world order of supranational organizations. And you were very vocal in warning against something that was averted temporarily, I fear, but I think it's a stay of execution rather
Mm.
than a commutation of sentence, through the Biden administration's efforts voluntarily to surrender our sovereignty to the World Health Organization, enabling its secretary, its director general, I should say, Tedros Ghebreyesus, to basically become the arbiter of what is a public health emergency of international concern and what would be done about it. Talk a little bit about why you were so insistent that that mustn't be allowed and where you think things stand now.
Yeah. I mean, they've really kind of revealed their hand. A year and a half ago, if you said, which I tried to say, this is a global script run by people who are transcending nation states and enacted in such a way as to bypass and dilute nation states. You'd be called a conspiracy theorist, as I often am. But the fact is that they've revealed that that's exactly what they are trying to do. And this treaty, which was, I agree with you, narrowly averted, forestalled, I agree they're going to sneak it back in one way or another because the record shows, and I trace this in the bodies of others, that that's just exactly what they do and have been doing. This was a treaty that the World Health Organization was trying to get signed by 190 nations, and that our own Biden administration proposed amendments to in support of, which is shocking, which would literally create a supranational power for the head of the WHO, who is aligned with China and funded by Bill Gates and China as major funders, to declare a public health emergency anywhere in the world and to decide what happens then anywhere in the world under the guise of that public health emergency, removing sovereignty. And we've seen, people could say, well, then maybe that's, nice scientists in lab coats who just want what's best for us. Well, we've seen what these people want to do. They want to deploy mercenaries, wherever they want. They want to, we narrowly defeated a regulation, a Board of Health regulation in Washington State that would have allowed Board of Health agents, HHS agents, to create a quarantine camp, detain members of that state indefinitely if they were exposed to a bloodborne pathogen. And over here in New York State, where I'm sitting talking to you, our governor keeps extending emergency powers based on the emergency of racism now, which I agree racism is very bad, but it's not a reason to suppress our rights. On the contrary. And she also is trying to create powers to detain and quarantine people if they're exposed to a bloodborne pathogen. So
Naomi, hold
we,
that thought. I want to come back because this is not the only peculiar pretext for extending emergency powers. We're going to talk about Joe Biden's in a moment. We have to take a short break. We'll be right back with Dr. Naomi Wolf, the author of The Bodies of Others. It's a fabulous best-selling book. You must get it. Stay tuned. We'll go for more.